Okay, we're going to have a quick overview of Adobe Illustrator CC 2014. Now we've opened up Adobe Illustrator. You see there's a toolbar down on the left side of the screen. Also, we've got a number of icons down the side, which are side panels, which are collapsed. You can change the workspace. I had it in the essentials, from layout to a number of different functions, including web, which offer up all the web components that you would use for making a website. We'll take it back to the essentials, which is the default setting, and we'll get going and set up a page and then go through some of the functions. Now we go to the file menu and we go new. Now once we've got this, you'll see we're in the new document. You can come up here where it's got profile, you can go for print, web, devices, film, and just basic RGB. Mainly Illustrator is set up for creating content for print. Designers and graphic designers would use it to do layup and logos and illustrations. Now that's what it's traditionally for, but also recently it's having a bit of a renaissance for web designers, mainly because you can output as SVG graphics, which images can be output programmatically and included in web pages or apps and be controlled by style sheets or JavaScript to animate them and format them into styles. Now if we go to the web profile, it will set up the units, but you can change the units whatever you set them on and go for pixels. Now if you see where it's got the web, it's got a number of different functions on there. Also if you go back up to devices, again it has a number of devices on there. Not all of them, and the way things are going, things are not pixel dependent anymore. You need to do it more generically to do with breakpoints because there's so many different options. Now what I will do is on the web profile, I'll just set up here and I'll just type in 1000 by 1000. Okay, now once I've done that, you can come down to the bottom, and this is advanced, that may be collapsed, and you can say RGB, and that's what you're doing for websites. You might have cyan, magenta, yellow, and K or key color for the black if you're doing for print, but we'll say set up something for a website or an app. It's got the screen, and here we've got screen resolution 72, and at the bottom it's got a line to a pixel grid. Now what can sometimes happen is when you're doing things for design based products, you're using point sizes, and if you want to have it in pixels, you need to set it up to a pixel grid, almost like it's a canvas in Photoshop. So I was going to set it up there. We don't need to worry about bleeds because if you're doing things online, you wouldn't have a bleed. But if you are going to do things that are going to be printed out and the artwork's right to the edge of the page, you would set it up with a 3mm bleed all around. Okay, we're going to click OK to that. Now it appears here, this is an artboard. Now the artboard is placed here, and we can have a number of different artboards on our document. Now I need to have a grid, always very important to have a grid. Now if you're using a PC, you would go to the edit menu and go down to preferences. On an Apple, you go to the Illustrator menu, you go to preferences, and we're going to start off with grids and guides. Different ways you can set up your grids and guides. This is we've got 1000 pixel square artboard on there. Now if we said we wanted every 200 pixels, and then we have a subdivision every 10, and now we click OK. Now nothing happens because we haven't got a grid set out, so we need to go to the view menu and we need to go and click on show grid. Now this will show a grid. Now what we've done is we've set out these main guides every 200, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, that makes 1000, and then also we've set out these other grids every 10. So it's however you want to break it up, but a grid system is crucially important when you're doing design work, especially in Illustrator. Now we're going to just dive in and look at some of the tools. We won't go through them one by one, but first up, we're going to go to the Shapes tool, and we're going to go for the rounded rectangle. Now, new in the Creative Cloud is the rounded rectangle that you can change the radius on the corners. So if I click here, I keep my finger on the Shift key, and also I click on Alt. What that will do is have it expanding from the center and maintaining its aspect ratio. I'll just drag it out here so it's on the guides, and that's where you have the guides, and let go. So what it's done, it's created a rectangle for me. Now, simple thing you do in an Illustrator is going up here on the options. If you look up here at the top, I can change the color of the fill. I make it yellow. Now the stroke over here, I can change the color of the stroke, maybe make it pink. And this is the stroke size. And I take the stroke up, and if you see it, it gets a lot bigger. So that's how you do that. Also, you can change what type of line you have, and you can change the type of line and border around there if you wish. That's very simply how you set it up. Now, because we've got a rounded rectangle, if I hover the mouse over here, I've got the selection tool, which is right at the top, or press V on my keyboard. Little circle here, I drag it in, and that changes the radius. If you drag it in too much, it will stop when it gets to a circle, and then I can drag it out. So what you can do is you can change the corner radiuses. Prior to that, you have to draw it all manually and get it to size. So that's really, really useful for doing elements and assets for websites and apps, and also if you're creating mock-ups, certainly doing wireframing for devices. Now I'll just blow up here, and I'll go for one of the corners. Now when I blow it up, this is a vector graphic. Oh my gosh, everything is nice and clear. Now if I go up to the view menu and I say pixel preview, look what happens. This is something you probably find in Photoshop. When you zoom in, everything is pixelated, mainly because Photoshop is on a canvas and it's using pixels to draw out the image, and that's how it works. And mostly when you're doing things to do web design components, that's what might be happening. You might be outputting them as PNGs or JPEGs eventually, and they're pixel specific, so this gives you an idea of how it's going to look. It's going to generate them as SVGs. You don't need to worry about that too much, but this gives you an idea not to get carried away in the quality. So I'll undo that and take it back to where it was before. Now I go back out again. I'm pressing the Alt key with the zoom down the bottom here to reduce back out. You can also go to the window menu, and you can go down to Navigator, and this is what you find in Photoshop. We can drag this out, pull it down here, and you can zoom in or zoom out, and then you can, once you've zoomed in, you can move this around to a location. So this might be, you know, quite useful to you if you're doing that. Now, next thing we will do is I'll just zoom out a little bit here, see the whole artboard. I'll just get rid of this. Now, the next thing I'll do is just go back to the shapes and get a rectangle. I will just drag out this rectangle on here. I will take off my stroke. I go right at the top here and I click to take the stroke off. I've just got the fill here. That's fine. And now what I will do is I will go to the object menu. Now this is how you would change the objects that you've got. I need to make sure I've got the black arrowhead before I do that, and then it won't be grayed out. And then once I've done that, I will go down to path, because these are made up of paths or vector shapes, and I need to go to split into grid. Now once I do that, I've got a little pop-up. I'll click preview to show what's happening, and if I do number, you'll see it'll break it up into a grid. I'll go to 6. Now what I can do is increase the gutter and make it a little bit bigger. Now this is really useful, and we'll look at this later on when we're creating device apps and we want to break it up into a grid. So that's what we would do. We would sort of break it up like that and overlay it on a device or a phone, drop it in the background and grey it out. Okay, if I press OK to that, and that gives us a grid that we can lay out our objects on there. I can drag across all of them, right mouse click, and I can say group, and that will make one group that can be then moved around and used for maybe the background for a layout. Now I'll just delete that and get rid of that. Now I'll look at some of the basic functions of using the pen tool or with the Bezier. So what I will do is I will just zoom in here a little bit more. Get in there. Right. Now what I will do is I will start off by getting the pen tool. Now using the grid, it makes it really easy. Once I've got the pen tool, I will click here and say, for example, I want to come up right across this box. So I hover the mouse over here on top of the box. Now if I click the mouse and keep my finger held down, then I hold the shift key and I drag out to the right, and I make sure that that line then is sort of straggling the two boxes, and it'll give me a really nice curve, and then I let go. Now you'll see here, because we have a yellow background it's doing it, we can get rid of that later on. Now when I move this round, I haven't got my mouse button held down, it sort of knows we've got a curve and it's predicting it, and we can come down here and you'll see the smart guides will appear at the bottom, snap to green when we've got it to that level, and what I can do is just click. Now once I've done that, by holding the shift key again, it'll keep it to a straight line. I click one more time and then I sort of drag out diagonally across here. Again, when the smart object appears, I can then click, hold the shift key, and I can drag out the left there, and it draws a nice curve for me. And then finally in nose, I want have another curve from the other side. I drag it out, I get the smart object, I click there, and finally I click and it joins up to where it started before and makes an anchor. Okay, so that's all joined up. So that's one object. And I can come up here, I can change its color, and then also I can change it for its border and take it up. So that's one way of making a shape. I'll just delete that. Now next, I'll just go here and I'll see how we can edit that. I'll click here, click to another point, click to another point, click to another point, and finally click there. Now, if I want to add points on there, I would go back up to the pen tool and click add point. Now once I add a point to there, or I add a point to here, once I've got those, I can edit them. Number of ways I can edit them. If I go to the direct selection tool, I can click on here and I can just pull them out and drag it like this once I've got those points. I can also go back to the pen tool and I can go down to the anchor point tool, and once you've got that, you can then adjust it by pulling out the Beziers as we did before to adjust it, and you can bring those around. Then I can get the direct selection tool and you can move it up and down. Now what I can do is go back to the pen tool up here, and I can get the delete anchor point and I can click on here and it deletes it. Bear in mind it will sort of jump it back because nothing is constraining it. Now once I've got that, I may want to go back and select another anchor point. Now if I select an anchor point here and I select an anchor point there, now what I can do is I can go down to where it's got the rubber and I go to scissors and I can click at this point and then click at that point on those anchor points. Then I can get the direct selection tool and I can move that away. So that's how you would cut something. You set up two anchor points and then cut between them to create two different objects. Okay, I'll delete those two objects, and that's just using that. We'll look at other situations when we're doing app devices to see how paths work. Now next up, we will draw out some shapes. First of all, I'll just change this and make it black, and I'll just knock out the stroke up here, And what I will do is go to the shapes, and first up I'll get say a rounded rectangle, put it there. Then I will go back and I will get a star. This one I'll get it to start from the center by holding the Alt and the holding the Alt and the Shift and drag out my star, put that there, and then finally I will just drag out a little polygon over here. So I've got three shapes. I'm going to make a compound path. I shift click all of them, then I right mouse click and I say compound path. Now what that's done is created a compound path, so it's made up of a number of different other path objects. They don't have to be joined up, and it creates one path. Now how I can edit them, double click on them. You look up here, it takes us out of the page layer into the compound path. Now here I can just double click on them individually, which I couldn't do before, and I could change one of those to this color. They all change. I make sure I go back up here and I get back down and click again and back on my page, so it's one item. So that's how you would do a compound path. Works the same way as what we're going to look for as a symbol a bit later on. Now I'll get rid of this. Now what I'll do is drag out a line. For this case I'll make my no fill, and I'll just go up here and make a black line. So when you're doing a line tools here, you're just using a stroke. So I will just drag this down. I'm holding the shift key to draw a straight line. I take this up quite a bit, make it about 48. I click on the black arrowhead and it's put my object here. Now when you look on here, you'll see these are the points on there, and we need to go and get the transform panel. We go to the window menu and we go down to transform, and this gives us the panel. Now these are the reference points it's relating to. So here, this is how you would get things to align up, by selecting the appropriate reference point that are all the way around. Now I want to create another line and join it up. So I click on the line tool. Again, I'm going to move away from here. I'm going to hold shift key. I'm going to drag out and I'm going to create another line. Now what I want to do is to drag this here. So I click on the path, and when I move it forward, it shows me when it gets an intersection on the center, it goes green. That's fine. Now these are still two separate paths, so if I shift click them both, or I can drag out and select them both, I now need to join them. I can right mouse click and go join, or I can go to the object, path, and then join. So if I click down here and join, it joins them as one object. So I've buttered them together and now the one object. Now say for example I wanted to clip a chunk off the end. Now I can't do that just straight for a path, so I need to go up here to the add anchor point and I hover it over here, and I'll just do it back here. And once I've done that, I can go to where it's got the scissors, usually embedded with the eraser, and then I click on that anchor point and you'll see it'll lose the path on the other side. I can get the black arrowhead and I can move either the items. Make sure you click on the actual path line within and not the actual stroke, because that will stretch nothing. The path is the important bit. You can move around, and that's how you would cut off a path, whatever you got. I click here, I'd add an anchor point wherever I wanted to, and then I would get my scissors, I'd click on it, and then I'd move up here, make sure I got that bit and move it. So that's how you would cut things. And as we've seen before, if you want to join them back, you move, get an intersection point wherever you would want it to be, shift both of those objects, you can right mouse click and you can join, and that will join them both up and make it into one whole path. Okay, I will just get rid of those two items off my page. That's how we join things up, get rid of them, hack them off. Now this time I'll draw out another line. It should remember what I've already got. I can hold the shift key. Now there's my line. Now what I can do is I can go up to the effect menu. This time I will go to distort and transform, and I'll go zigzag. brings up my panel. Press preview. A number of these hands have a preview, and this is what we can do. We can move these lines around, we can change it, how it looks, we can make it smooth like that, or we can have it cornered. That's another little way of doing, changing the line properties. You could align other lines, other paths up to make a continuous or a further design. Now once I've done that, if I get the black arrowhead and click on that, you'll see it's already got the same path as we had before. So this is just almost a preview. Now when you've done something like this and you got that and you got sort of the residue of the last situation it was in, you need to go to the window menu. Sorry, you need to go to the object menu, and you need to go expand appearance, and then that will sort of convert it into the situation it is now rather than where it's been. Now I close that off, and next I'm going to use a Pathfinder. I've still got the Pathfinder out here, or if I want to get it out, I would go to the window menu and go down to Pathfinder. Now Pathfinder is quite useful for almost like cookie cutting. If you're making biscuits, you've got a cutter and you cut them out. So first up, I'll just look at a basic form. I'm going to make two rectangles. I'll make them red. I'll just take off the stroke to not make them too complicated, and then I'm going to create one here, and I'm going to create another one not too far away from it here. Now once I've got that, black arrowhead, shift click both of them. Now once I've got that with the Pathfinder, I go up here for the first one, and all that does, it clicks them together and makes a bit of a compound path as we had before. Very simple. Now what I'll do is I'll just undo that and get it back out of those things. I'll just ungroup those two items, and what I will do is make one of them a little bit larger like that, the back one. I will then make it yellow color, and then I will put the other one on top, make that a little bit bigger, and then once I've done that, I'll get another shape which will be a star. I need to make it different color, and then I will drag it out here. And what I will do is I will do the next Pathfinder, which is the next one, which is minus front. I'll shift click the red square and also the star, and I click on that. Now once I do that, it'll turn yellow. Now if I move it to one side, you'll see what it's happened. All it's done is minus the front shape, so it's actually made a cutout on there, which may be quite useful if you're doing some design work. Now if I get rid of both of these items, I will go back up, and this time I will get two ellipse shapes, one here, and then once I've done that, I'll just make another one here, a bit bigger, and I will change the colors. Make that one green, maybe get the black arrowhead, make this one maybe I'll make it this color here. So I've got two shapes here. Now if I shift click them and then go up to the Pathfinder, the third one, it just does an intersection. This one just gets rid of the two objects on the opposite side, and I do that. Now once that's done, I could go to the third one, which is exclude, and all that does is get rid of the intersection between both of them. Again, that might be something useful you might want to have. I'll just undo that. Now the next case we're going to look at is the shape builder. Down here in the tools panel, it's got the shape builder, quite a new tool, very similar to the Pathfinder but a little bit more enhanced. And I will come down here and I will get the shape builder. Now how the shape builder works is when you hover it over, you'll see it's got a little arrow with a plus. When I press the Alt, it'll say minus. So for example, if I hover it over here, it'll minus that bit out. If I hover it over here with the Alt and click on that, it will do things like that. I'll just get those back. Or if I did it in the middle here, it would get rid of that and then get rid of this. So you can actually build up shapes by overlaying other shapes and cutting them out. Again, this might have some use when you're creating logos or design work. Okay, what I'll do, put another shape on there, and this time I'm going to close down the Pathfinder, and I'll put a stroke on there, yellow stroke, and I'll take it up a little bit. There we go. Now what I will do is over here, you'll see it's got appearance, and this panel is really useful, especially if you're doing mock-ups for designs. You've got this, so you can actually change the stroke, you can change the color that you're looking for, so it's really useful rather than going up to the top. Does the same thing up here, but certainly if you've got a very complex image, the appearance is really good in knowing where you're up to with any part of the appearance itself. Now once I've got that, I'll just get rid of those. Now I'll look at how you would import an image. So I go File, Place. Okay, select an image, bring it in. It sticks to the cursor as it would do in InDesign, and you can click and place it. Now you can scale it by dragging it out. Bear in mind, a bitmap, it will pixelate. In this case, it has pixelated, so you have to be careful. Just scale the images down. I've got this image here, and what I want to do is put a mask over the top. So it goes to the shape, so it goes to the ellipse. I'll just hover the mouse over the top. I hold Alt and Shift, and I drag out a shape. Now once I've done that, I'll just knock off the stroke. I'll just leave the color on there, that's fine. All will be dissolved in a minute, and I shift click both of them. Now what I do is right mouse click and I say make clipping path, and it makes a clipping path of the image. Now if we go up here, we'll find it has edit contents, and I'll just click back, and then I can then put a stroke on it and take the stroke up and make it larger. Now if I wanted to edit this, what I will, I'll just take the stroke down there a bit. It's gone a little bit out of hand. So what I would do is, wanted to edit that, I would double click on it. You'll see up here it's got to the clip group, and then what I can do is move the image around within the clip group, and if you had it, you could scale it and bring it around. Now once I've done that, I can take it back down and get back down to the page so that disappears, and that's how you would insert an image, scale it, and also create a mask for it, which is pretty straightforward. I'll get rid of that. Next thing I will look at is doing text. Press T for text. I click on here. Now I've got my text up at the top, so you can select different fonts that you would want to place on your design, and go up and click this. I'll get Arial Black. You can get the sizes, take them up. Also, you could click on character, which will give you all the options. So all I do is type something in. Okay, there we go. Now if I click on the black arrowhead, I click here. Now if you see this little white handle on here, if I then just go down to the bottom and drag that out and drag it in and drag it out, you'll see it skewer. Just undo that. I need to hold the shift key and drag it in, drag it out. Now if I double click this, and now see what happens, the box expands and it contracts. So while it's blue, it means it's just expanding the actual text frame box, but not the object. If I double click on it, it means that it's attached and making it bigger. So that's a good way of moving things around. I think that's a new function within CC 2014. Now I'll make it bigger and drag it out, holding shift key constrains its proportions. Now once I've done that, you can highlight it. How you would change the text is go up here, change the color for a different color if you wish, which is up here, which is pretty straightforward. Again, as I said before, all the paragraphing text is up here. You might have to move things around where it's getting its reference point from. I'll just get rid of that, and I will just make that text a little bit larger on there. Now next thing we can look at is the touch type tool. Go to character, touch type tool. Now if I just come over here and I click on my object, it actually makes it independently edit, and then I can move that around, and I could click on this one and again move it around. And this is sort of like the letters you get, where you stick things on your fridge and move things around. So, you know, this is quite straightforward. You can do things like that, move it around, and everything moves in sort of sync with it and changes it around. Okay, and I could change its color and make it all those things. So this is, you know, quite useful if you're doing some design work. That allows for that, but that's quite an interesting way of working. So that is a character and its touch type tool, which can also be accessed from here, where it's a number of the different options down the bottom with the text tool. Okay, so that's doing some text. There's a little bit more to it than that, but that's it in its simplest form. Now if I do my text box again, I'll just go up here, go to the ordinary text tool. I can drag out. What I would do is I'll just type hello in there. I will then go up to the type and go to type options, area type options. Once I've got that, this is where I press a preview and take the number of columns up. I can change the gutter. So this is how you would change the columns and gutters, and within a text box you can have a column structure, so you can use it for doing layup. Okay, get rid of that. Now we're going to look at artboards. Artboards, you can activate them down here at the bottom where it's got artboards. It shows we just got one and it's unnamed, or you can click on the artboard tool, which looks like noughts and crosses, and name it. So I'll just call this main, for want of a better word. And once I've got that, I can zoom in on there like that. And also with the artboard tool selected, I can now collect another artboard and have it there, or even another artboard of different sizes. Now once I've got those things, you can actually adjust the sizes up here in pixels dimensions. But this is really useful for making mock-ups for devices, and when you're trying to do responsive design devices or different icons. If you want to get rid of it again with the Artboards tool selected, you can delete them back. Now what I'm going to do here is use a symbol. So if I go up to the symbols, which is like the Ace of Clubs, and I click on that, I go to the side option panel here, I go open symbols, and I go web icons, and I can select a web icon of my choice. Now I will come up here and click this one, and I will just drag it out. Now it will appear quite small, so all I would do is scale it. It's at okay. Once I drag down, make sure I've got black arrowhead, and I will drag it out, put it on there, and scale it and make it a bit bigger. Now here we have a nice icon on our page, scalable graphic. Now what we want to do is we want to turn this into a item that we can change around. So how you edit it as a symbol, double click on it. Now we double click and gives you warnings as it takes you into this isolation mode to edit it. We go okay. We've got it in here. It's put us up here, and you'll see it's gone really, really small. I can zoom in a little bit. Oops, not too much. There we go. And all I do is I click it, and what I do is I go up and I change its color, and I'll make it red. Now I need to go back here to get it back in there, and you'll see it's gone quite huge because it's got my size, and you'll see it's changed color. Not only has it changed color, it's got it up here in these symbols that you know, are usable symbols. Now if I delete that and put it out there, I can drag out an image here and scale it. Whoops. I'll just take that back, hold the shift key, go in one of the corners, drag it out. Then I can drag out another one, make it this size, and finally another one this size, and then drag it out. Now if I just double click on any one of those, it gives me a warning again. I click there, I get back up, and this time make it maybe a blue color, and then I get out of my isolation mode. It changes them all. So that's a good thing about symbol. You can change it and come back and forward. So if you have it part of an interface, it will change all the items in it. Now what we will do now is look at doing some outline text. Now this time I'll click T for text, I click here, I type in hello, I get the black arrowhead, I move it around, I make sure, you know, I've got this set, I drag it out and do this. Now sometimes you want to make the text into just an image, or what it calls an outline, rather than being editable text. There might be reasons to another computer it doesn't have that font, you want to do some effects on it. So I've got this text, I right mouse click and I say create outlines, and it'll just create it as an outline, which will turn it into paths, which might be what you want. Okay, so that's creating an outline by right mouse and clicking on some text. Now, say for example you created a graphic like this, and maybe we create some sort of icons, and I sort of put this on here, and we created some graphic. You got it all lined up. I move this down and just see we have this. And say for example you wanted to save it as just an image, an SVG, a scalable graphic. I shift click both of them, and what I can do is group them. Now once I group them, I can just get the artboard tool and click on the artboard tool and just double click on anywhere. Now what it does is then hugs the edge of the image. That's what you're usually doing in design, in Illustrator. You're actually, once you're outputting things, you want to get rid of all the white space around it, and that's what I've done here. I'm going to have a go at saving as an SVG. I go File, I go to Save As. Once I'm at Save As, I will now, I'll just go on the desktop here, I'll just go to SVG. Once I've got SVG, it's asked what artboards I want. If you've got a number of artboards, it will output them as separate images. I've just got the one. I click Save. Then it gives me this option here. Now what I can do is down the bottom I can press the code, and this opens up the code in Notepad or whatever you've got set up. And this is all the code and the coordinates that you can use in your design. And this is where you would use JavaScript to edit it and make animations, or use cascades and style sheets to change its color. You can cut and paste that, or you can just go out and just save it and click OK. If I click on here, it should eventually open it up in the browser as a preview, and you'll see here, this is why they call it a scalable graphic file. You drag it in, drag it out, and it keeps its quality because it's made programmatically. So once you've done that, you can just click OK, and it will save as a SVG. Standard format you need to save as would be the Illustrator file, or if you want to output things and bring them into things like design programs, like InDesign, you would do it as an encapsulated PostScript image, which is an EPS, or you might want to bring it into a PDF. If you want to turn it into something else, you can go to the file and you can go to export, and this is where you would get it as PNGs or JPEGs, or even Photoshop files and TIFFs if you wanted to make it interchangeable in other programs or other usage. Now once you've got that, you can also come along here and create another artboard, and once you're there you can put other images on there and build it up, or you could have other interfaces and build those up too and place them on there, and then you can save those all individually. Now I'll just delete that, and I will just click on my artboard tool, and I'll delete the artboard, and now I'll get the black arrowhead and delete the house and those things. Now once I'm here, I will do a little bit of work, and this time I'm going to have the copy, repeat and move to wrap up with. I click up here, I get a rectangle, I just drag that out and make it here. Now I need to use the transform tool, so I need to go to Window and I get transform. Now I'm going to make this 100 pixels wide, and I'll just type in 100. All will be revealed as we do some basic maths. I'll type in 100, and that'll make it 100 in size. So once we've got that, the next thing I will do is I'm going to have it copy and repeating. Now once that's done, I will go to the object menu, and I will go down to transform and move. Now I'll move the panel over here. Now on the panel, I want to have it moving 200 pixels along, so I'll type in 200 and click down there, and you'll see it will give distance is having 200. I think if I put the angle at 0, because otherwise it'll have it going a little bit skew with. Also, I'm going to have the vertical at 0 as well, so I can place that there, and then make sure I put 200 in, which should be matching up. So 200, 0, 200, and that should be 0. Click preview, it'll show you where it's moving on to. Now I might want to bring it in a little bit more and say 150, and I'll see what happens with that. It will automatically change. I give it a little preview again, and that looks good. Now all I do is go copy, and it's done it. And all I do is press Control D, Control D, Control D, and I'll keep on doing that at those regular intervals again. That's what you might want to have. You can do it at any angle or any size and move it along. Now, just delete those. I am going to move this up, and I'm going to move this in a little bit and make it a little bit more shorter. I'll put it about there. Also, I can have it to rotate. So I've got this here. If I go to Object, Transform, Rotate. Now this time, again, if you always press Preview, this time I'll have it rotating by, say, 20 degrees. And if I uncheck and recheck Preview, it'll show me what that looks like. Now once I've done that, I can press Copy, and all I'm going to do is either go Command D on an Apple or Control D on a PC, and just go D, 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 and it just copies it at those points. So you can make a little design like that. Highlight it all, I'd go Shift click, and I would go Group, and it would make it one item that I can move around. Illustrations like that, you're making different items to draw. Finally, I'll do another variant of that. I'll click up here. I'll make a little bit of a line on there by holding the Shift key, dragging it down. I need to take that up a little bit like that, not too much, I guess. And once I've done that, I will copy it and I'll paste it, and I will move it down here to make sure it's lined up. This is where you're doing the grid structure is important. I shift click both of these. Now once I've got that, I will need to go back up to the object. I go back up to the object, transform. This time I'll click rotate, and you'll see it's got it there. That might be a little bit too much. I'll go 15. Uncheck the root. There we go. Once I've got that, I'll go copy, and if I go Command D, Command D, Command D, you'll see it'll go all the way around and do something like that. Okay, so that's really, really useful. Now, finally, I'll just finish up on looking at layers. So I'll close down these panels to give a good idea, and I click on layers. Now, layers are really, really useful because you build them up. You'll see all the items are here. They can be really complicated, and I'll just put a star on there for want of a better name. And what I can do is I can lock those layers if I'm tracing into the background, and I can add another one and put design. So they're a little bit more complicated than Photoshop layers, and you click on here and this will circle to show the active layer, and you'll have, certainly when you click on things, it will show you, where you are and what you're drawing, but you have to be also very careful of that. If you do drag guides out, you would have to go to the view menu, rulers, show guides. You would drag, say if I was on this layer, make sure that's my active layer. I drag out a guide on there, and maybe drag out another guide from the left there. You will see it will include the guides on there, and you can name all these. Usually there's so many you would struggle to name them, but if you can name their groups, then that would be important.